Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, Greg Anthony here on the Investigative Journal, and thanks for coming back on this January 19th, 2017 day on our calendar. And today my guest is Debra Ondrisek of the Alamo Ministry, and with that in mind, let me get on with my opening monologue. You know, the treatment of government and the targeting of the members of the Alamo Ministry and its pastor shows a complete disregard for our most cherished rights given to us by first our Creator and secondly by the Constitution of the United States. These cherished rights of freedom of religion, speech, ownership of property, as well as the right to educate our children with Christian values, have all been disregarded and egregiously violated in this case. I have spent many years researching the many violations of civil liberties and the rights to a fair trial in both the criminal case waged against Pastor Alamo, leading to an unbelievable prison sentence of 175 years, and also the child custody cases involving more than 35 children taken into custody, stolen by the state, without child abuse ever found in any of the cases. And I've tried for years, folks, to get this case in front of the mainstream media and even much of the alternative media with very little success, showing how the press works in concert with the criminal violations of the government in this way to shield the people of the United States from their wrongdoings, and at the same time clouding the American people from the truth about the real truth about the ministry and its pastor. Our last resort to get some semblance of justice in this tragic case, which I've been covering for more than a decade, will be to petition this year the President's pardon attorney, seeking executive clemency and commutation of Pastor Alamo's 175-year sentence, where he served almost a decade. Please continue to follow our radio shows here for progress on this matter, as well as going to freetonyalamo.com. And there you can find the petition. You can link onto the petition at the top of the website. Sign it, and we will include, even if you have comments, this to the pardon attorney, along with a detailed writ that needs to be done. And follow this show because I will be getting advice and also counsel to get this done properly. So with that in mind, let's get to Debra Ondrisek of the ministry who's here today. And there's much to talk about this case. And first, Debra, though, your comments on what I just said.
Well, what we're doing right now in the ministry is we're getting the literature out regarding his commutation and also the literature, well, actually the letter that John Gary Peeler wrote confirming what Tony has said about the government and Bill Clinton trying to destroy him and take him out and to actually close down this ministry, that how he was sent in here to do that. So we're trying to alert the media about that and people on the street, and we've been to quite a few rallies before and after the election, the victory also rallies with this message. And once the people get alerted to it and really see, if they could just see how John Gary Peeler's testimony, how that was not allowed in the courtroom, how that really was the key that would have turned the case and our pastor would have won the case, because obviously it shows the government infiltration into the ministry and the effort by the government agencies to destroy this ministry and to shut it down.
Right, and go ahead.
Well, of course, the reason one of the main reasons is because for decades our pastor has put out information alerting people about what's going on in the one world government and how the Vatican has control, how this foreign religious, false religious organization has power in our government to dictate their will to our government, to our citizens. That's to show how that's been going on it's been going on for hundreds of years. So they had to silence him because his voice was big. He was getting out millions and millions of pieces of literature in Los Angeles and New York and in between, all over in between, and also going worldwide, sending it out. And also then we've had our radio broadcast where he was bringing messages about the Bible and just telling it the way it is. So they had to stop him. And so what they did was they broke up our church. They came in and they kidnapped our children. And kidnap carries the death penalty in the American government. But, of course, if you're part of a world organization that owns the governments of the world and dictates to them, you can get away with kidnapping. And that's exactly what happened. They took our children, kidnapped our children, brainwashed them, got them to go on their side, spoke evil about their parents and the members of the ministry and our pastor, and then they turned the children, several of them, into bringing a lawsuit against our ministry, which is still ongoing.
You know, Deborah, let's get back to Tony's case, and then we'll get on with the custody cases. But let me just say something here about the procedure here with a pardon attorney. And I think it's good for our listeners to know. When this is presented to the pardon attorney, he will have discretion on whether to give it to Trump. Now, what that's going to take is when they first look at a case like this, they're going to look at it just like 90% of the American people who have gotten slandered reports about your ministry, right? And have seen your ministry totally as a cult. They look at Tony as a child abuser, all of which is false, we know. But that's exactly what he's going to look at. Now, Trump's not going to want to pardon anybody. It's not good PR, so to speak, if that's what he ends up hearing only. So what has to be done in this case is to concentrate on the errors in the court and all of the things you said about the affidavit that must be an affidavit from Peeler and any other FBI informant we can get, as well as many affidavits supporting the trial transcripts, pointing out the irregularities. So, for example, members of the ministry who were in that court listening, the testimony by Bert Krantz, which will have to be a sworn affidavit, that he was told that if he lied about the pastor, he would be given his children right back. And then testimony about what the court said, remember when the judge gave the jury instructions to Tony, and then the jury came back and said, well, if he didn't commit any child abuse, can we still convict him? And then there was no response by the judge. A lot of these irregularities should have resulted in a mistrial, should have resulted in his exoneration, as well as the people that weren't allowed to testify. And that we can get a number of those affidavits, sworn affidavits, and this is going to take a good amount of time to get these from individuals. But without it, there's no chance. So here's the point. I even want to go to the point of now talking about the 4 girls or 5 girls they used to testify against him. And do you think any of them right now would recant with a sworn affidavit, or are they still being paid by the government, and would they lose something of monetary value? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that if they recanted, they would lose something of monetary value very much, and they may even be prosecuted for
perjury,
the testimony that they gave, and then turning their testimony. So I'm not sure what that's called.
But I think that wasn't there. I've read a couple of these girls, or at least one has recanted, and I've read that those statements. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think for sure that the government would go after those girls if any of them would recant and make it into a court issue.
All right. But they have gone on records, one of them at least has gone on record stating that she's sorry she did this. It's not the truth, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that, we have to at least get that. And she's
Absolutely.
already gone on record. And if she will not do a sworn statement, then we have to get a sworn statement that this, whoever this was told to, is the truth. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. So involving Tony's case, that's going to be vital. Now, all the other extenuating things, we can get a number of people to testify to his good behavior in prison, what he's been doing there, as well as we have to get a doctor's statement stating his physical condition is deteriorating and he needs better medical care. And at least what we really want to do is get a commutation from Trump. And what that means is he's going to commute his sentence. They won't get it's not going to, I'm not even going to attempt to get them to get the guilty charge pardoned at this point. But a commutation is basically our best chance. Because what we're going to say is he's already served 10 years. This is plenty. Here's the reasons. He's been framed. This has been going on for years. Now, the real nice thing about this, and when I say nice for our case, is that this has been going on for 40 years. And there's a pattern here that was never brought out in the trial. And what I say, this was the most egregious conviction I've ever seen. When you read these trial documents and you see he didn't get a fair trial, and then you see the rubber stamping of these judges on the appeals, it's just incredible. And he is basically a political prisoner, and that's how I want to present it. Your thoughts?
I think that's absolutely the right way to do it. And yes, he did serve at least 4 years in prison before on false charges in the IRS case.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got over 12 years in prison for sure. So, I mean, if you put it all together. And yes, he is a political prisoner. And it's really sad because he's like really the greatest patriot to me that this country's ever had. Because he has totally stood up against where all this evil is coming from in our government and put out the literature. He's given his life for it. He's laid down his life to let the people know what's going on here.
Correct. And you recently had visited with him, haven't you?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about the visit.
Well, it was, I must have been in there for 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and it was wonderful to see him. It's sad, the circumstances of the visit, and I hope that he'll be out before I ever go back to see him again, really. But it was very nice to see him, and I was telling him some of the things that were going on in the news, and he just, to me, he's the same Tony. He hasn't changed in any way, if you ask me, and it was just very pleasant.
And we can also use that last article he wrote. I think it's called "My Commutation." Remember that the last article?
Yes.
We can include that, and also I will have to ask him for another. We can also get another statement by him. But what I think I laid it out pretty good where we're at in this case. Now, for my listeners, please go to all my old shows because this has been a work in progress for years, and you're going to see that the depiction that the media gave to your ministry, calling you a cult, as well as Tony, is totally false. And that's really how they've been able to hide from any kind of violations of law, which they have basically violated the Constitution, many criminal violations against your rights, not only Tony's right to a fair trial, but also let's move over to your cases now. They weren't satisfied with that. They had to trump up some charges that you guys were child abusers and you don't deserve to have your children or teach them Christian values. Tell us how big this story is. So big and they've been covered by the media, who's depicted you as a bad mother, as all you people being cult members and you're brainwashing your children. Your response?
Well, I can say for myself and several of the parents that were accused of these accusations, myself and my husband were both exonerated by the Arkansas State Police, and we have the paperwork, and it's posted actually on the website. We were not guilty of anything. They found nothing at all. And regarding my daughter Angela, also, there's nothing. Tony, he was exonerated. There was nothing. So, what exactly was my daughter and my son taken away for? I think that the government is so controlled by the Vatican, and people don't see this, and they say, well, it's a conspiracy theory, but that's not so. It really is controlled by the government, by the Vatican, and to me, they own the different organizations. Like the FBI and the CIA. The CIA was created by the Vatican, and the FBI, it's a Catholic organization. So when they own all these organizations, and I'm just going to kind of throw this in, but they say there's maybe 1 million children that disappear in our country every year. Now, how is this possible that 1 million children disappear? Nobody knows where they go to. There's got to be some kind of collusion between the FBI, the CIA, and all these different, the police departments, all these different departments. And you know that it's true. And the Justice Department, which I call the Injustice Department, you will find that they're gonna let go all of the bad guys, and they're gonna get all of the good guys and either put them in prison or get them to where they can't say anything. And that's basically what they tried to do with our ministry, putting our pastor in prison, but it didn't work because we're still getting the message out. And it's the thing that we purpose to do is still going to be done. We purpose to get the gospel out and to show what's going on here and show our enemy how they're working against us. And that's where it's going right now.
And regarding the children, Bert Krantz and Greg Siegel have already talked about how they did the same thing to them. And Bert had 6 kids, and then
Yes.
we got a total of over 35 to 40 children that were basically kidnapped, and they never were able to prove abuse charges. But because of the secrecy of the juvenile courts and the DHS workers, basically, I've never seen such treatment. They were basically told there's no way these children ever go back to their parents unless, like in Bert's case, he was told if you testify and you lie, they didn't say lie, but if you back up our story about Tony, which is totally fraudulent, you can have your kids back tomorrow, and he refused. So,
That's right. And
you know what that showed me, though, Debra, and I've never said this on the show before, but since you're here, it showed me that Tony is being framed. If a man is going to lose his 6 children, and Tony was actually a child abuser, as they said, he would have testified to that fact. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. To get his kids back? Yeah, absolutely. And so would I. Everybody would have. But we know that it's not true. And Greg, I wanted to say something. They put us under a gag order. All of us parents, we were not allowed to discuss it with anybody, and especially with the media. Nobody could.
Or they would have put you in jail, right?
That's right. We were going to go to jail, and that Judge Griffin that died since then, he said, and he will put us in prison. So for sure and certain, we weren't allowed to say anything. They got to say everything they wanted. The media got to say what they wanted them to say, and we couldn't say a thing about it. And they took our kids, and that was just too bad for us.
Yeah, it's just totally amazing. And I believe that, this is the kind of sworn testimony that I'd like you guys, for example, to get together with and we have to get affidavits, from Bert, which I'm sure there'll be no problem. We just have to organize all this stuff, and yourself and others, regarding this. And this also has a big effect on, when they look at this and they're going to go, wow, these people, they would have, if he was actually what they said he was, they would have basically testified against him to get their kids back. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
very strong, and we can also use that. So I think if you're listening out there, at least in the court of public opinion right now, folks, you have to question, this can happen to you. And they're slowly eroding your rights. Look what's going on just look at the public school system now. Look at the rights that you have being taken away from you right now. Your children aren't allowed. There's kids that are being expelled from school because they brought a Bible. There's kids being expelled from public school or suspended because they wanted to say a prayer. There's kids that are refusing to use these transgender bathrooms. I can't even imagine. Obama's legacy is going to be just that he's forcing children to become perverts in a sense, and that does not sit good with me. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. And he just pardoned Chelsea Manning, who is actually a man trying to be a woman, which is just not physically possible to do. And he's all this transgender thing really came in the past 8 years. It just exploded. I would say because Mr. Obama he's a homosexual, and he has a homosexual partner who he referred to as Michael. And obviously Michelle is transgendered. And so, of course, you have, during his tenure, you have Bruce Jenner, the champion, Wheaties champion of the world, the great athlete, becoming a woman. I mean, such insanity and madness here. And that's what happens when you allow people that are godless to be in charge of your country. And they've come in with their deception, and they rule with deception, and they're deceiving the masses, and they've got a mouth to do it. They've got the media. They own the media. So the Vaticans, and they own the governments, and so there you have it.
Yeah, and I've played, look what happened to Joan Rivers, the comedian, after she basically stated what you just said about the Obamas, and she was dead a month later. And
That's
you can
right.
go, I've played that clip, or you can get it and just Google Joan Rivers transgender, and you will see exactly what happened to her. I mean, she went in for a very routine operation, and it was found out that it wasn't her doctor, and she was dead. Something happened during this, and I believe they killed her for what she said.
That's right.
And nothing, the real interesting thing was you didn't hear much about this after that. There wasn't much outrage regarding Joan Rivers outside of, in the alternative media by people, both good and bad in the alternative media that picked it up. But that's true with a lot of things in the mainstream. They're not going to deal with this issue. In fact, they're still calling people who believe that 9/11 was an inside job as freaks and idiots and liars. That's still going on in the mainstream. And if anybody ever really is research, and there are many who have, the facts the government gave you about their case it was like a piece of Swiss cheese. It couldn't have been true.
No way was it true. And then what do you do with building number 7?
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is the key right there.
But look at how they've succeeded, though, over the years now. It's over 16 years now. And nobody talks about it. I'm talking about outside of the real people that have researched this. That 9/11 is just another Pearl Harbor. It's just there's so much other things they're doing. They always keep these the chaos going on. Now it's ISIS, etc., etc. Well, listen.
It was an excuse to bring in all this homeland security, which is really insecurity, if you ask me, and all this putting the clamps down on the American people, and more rules, more laws, more legislation, more no privacy, just to gain more control right here.
Okay, well, this has been a spirited half hour, and I appreciate your candor and your comments. So let's do this. Let's take a break, come back in 3 minutes. People no flipping, no going to another channel. So listen to Debra. We got a lot more to cover in the next half hour. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. you will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the Supreme Jesuit Command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this January 19th, 2017 day on our calendar. My guest is Debra Ondrisek of the Alamo Ministry. Go to that first half hour, folks. If you haven't listened to it, you can get my shows all over the place. They put them on YouTube, and I'm always astounded to find out where my shows end up because the Internet's a public place, and my shows, if you can find me if you want. And so go to, at least if you're just tuning in right now, go to the first half hour. It was a spirited debate, and I think in a discussion regarding how this ministry has been targeted for over 40 years, and it shows really that Christians are under attack, more subtly here in America, but they are under attack. And with that, I thought, and we discussed first the false imprisonment and the basically framing of Tony Alamo, the pastor, and also in the first half hour we discussed the kidnapping really by the state of their children when there were no child abuse charges found. And go to that. So we've done other shows. I won't belabor that point. We'll have Debra on again. But I did want to end our discussion on the ministry and go into a couple other things. But first, one of the things you mentioned what I bring up on my show a lot is Christian persecution over, around the world. And it's amazing when you start looking at what's happening. And I know your ministry has been involved with this for years. And this is one reason why they have targeted you guys, because you do spread the truth about the Vatican. And many of the people that have responded to the petition and signed it left comments and were very, very thankful that you guys didn't pull any punches and taught what the Protestant reformers taught back in the 1500s. And guess who went after them? It was the Jesuits, just like they're going after you. So tell us about your influence overseas and the people that you guys talk to almost every day and send literature to. Go ahead.
Well, I know that Pastor has had a ministry by radio over there for many years. He did, and a lot of people would write in and they were getting saved, and we were sending gospel literature over, of course, free of charge to them, and they were distributing it over there, and many people were getting saved, and Muslims were getting saved, and which is always quite controversial, and they usually have to hide from family and friends and everybody that wants to kill them because they've become a Christian. And we've had many people get saved, come out of witchcraft and terrible things over there. And I know our pastor has sent some of our people over there to help them and see what they're doing, and also make sure that the people that we're dealing with really are Christians, because he was sending money over there to help them, and money to buy water wells and food and clothing and different various things that we were helping people with, and even for hospital bills and different things that people needed. And he had done that for years and years, and so of course they had to shut us down for that. But there's a lot of wonderful good responses. The work is still going on over there in various countries over in Africa and in India, just different places, the Philippines and I believe Taiwan, just various places, England, and even different places in the United Kingdom. So that's what he had been doing, and of course the persecution has stemmed from that, and from what we're doing here at home also. Now
you guys are still sending out literature as we speak, correct?
Yes, we are.
And I noticed, I always get reports, and you guys are getting still so many hits. You get over 400,000 hits a week on your website. And so they really haven't silenced you. And this isn't the first time they did this. I remember we've spoken in other occasions regarding how they took you guys apart in the 90s, and you had to start all over again. They took your assets. They took most everything and left people out homeless, correct?
Absolutely. I was one of them.
Tell us about that.
Also. Well, I had a baby that was 7 months old, and I didn't have a vehicle or any way to even get off the property that they were demanding that we get off of. And some of the people that were getting off the property that had a little bit of money, they were confiscating that from them, going in our homes, rifling through our closets. I was there when they did that, and looking for money, no doubt. And of course, we know that the police, the marshals that did that, we know they just lined their pockets with it. And it was terrible. It was February, I think the middle of February, 1991, and I had several small children. I had a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, a baby, and one that was 5 years old, and a couple of teenagers. And somebody gave me a ride down to the bus station, and we got some help from a family member that was lived in a different state, and so we were able to get a little sustenance that way. But they took our livelihood. They took that meant that we had no more jobs. We were self-supportive, and it was just a horrible situation. They took all of our properties and took whatever they could take. Went up and put the tags of the U.S. Marshals, do not enter, do not touch, and went up, and then they auctioned off the properties for pennies on the dollar, and everything that we had worked for and built for decades was just swallowed up.
And then you guys rebuilt, you started over, and you built it up again, and they're trying to do the same thing now with this raid in 2008, right?
Absolutely, and this time they really hit us hard because they took our children for no reason whatsoever, no justifiable reason, but they control the court system, and that's why they were able to do that. And I do want to say this, and some people might not like me saying it, but Judge Jim Hudson and Judge Joe Griffin, that were very much involved in taking away our children, and Judge Hudson in the first raid signing away everything, giving them 100 officers authority to come up and take our kids and to take whatever they wanted to, and found nothing at all whatsoever to incriminate our pastor. Those two judges are dead now. So
and they died of natural causes, correct?
Well, yeah, they died. For whatever reason, they're dead. We didn't have anything to do with it, but
I wanted to make that clear. But here, let's go back to the 90s when that happened to you. And this is quite interesting. And I may even include this. I've just thought about it when you were speaking. But I believe I think the ministry sent it to me, or somebody else did, regarding during a raid in the 90s when they were going after Tony for IRS charges, which were, again, he spent time in jail. He wasn't even allowed to defend himself because they stole the books. And he, before he had no way to defend himself, and they put him in jail on false charges again. But during that time, you guys had they confiscated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of the jackets you guys used to sell to fund your ministry and to help poor people, right? He made leather jackets that were bought by many Hollywood stars and stars in Nashville, and they confiscated this, and one of the law enforcement officers stole a number of the jackets for his own personal use. He was then found guilty, and he went to jail, and his sentence was just commuted. Something crazy. No, what happened was he was pardoned, so that the crimes were wiped off his record because he'd been out of jail for a number of years after stealing your property, and his sentence was just pardoned. And I'm going to have to get the specifics on that, and you may do the same, but I find that to be quite interesting, don't you?
I do. That's really amazing that they would do that, but everything that's happened to us is amazing. But they did the same. Well, they did evil to our Lord Jesus Christ, to John the Baptist. Anybody, a man might do something. People do things wrong. You could say this person did this or that person did that, and I'm not talking about our pastor, and I'm not really talking about our ministry. But different people do things wrong, you could say. But the Lord Jesus Christ never sinned, and look at the brutal death that he had to suffer. Look at the false witnesses that came against him, and look at the accusations they brought against him, and he never sinned. They called him a wine bibber, a friend of publicans and sinners, and which he was a friend of publicans and sinners. He was their best friend. He told them the way to get to heaven and to stop being the way they were and how they could get redemption. But, that's the modus operandi that Satan's people will always have, is to attack with lies and with deception the people of God that really are getting out the truth. Satan dwells in the darkness, and he operates by lies. That's what his name means. It means liar, deceiver. That's what he is. But that's what happened back then. That's what's been happening down through the years. I've been with the ministry since the beginning of 1970, since I was actually a teenager, and I've seen, and it's just unbelievable the things I've seen. I had no idea that this could ever happen, but I'd never really been in a true Church of God before. I was raised Catholic, and quite deceived by it.
Well, let's turn a page here and talk about a show that's just now airing on HBO. It's called The Young Pope. There's been 2 episodes so far, and just to preface that, the Vatican a lot of times tells us what they're doing through the Hollywood. And this, to me, I know you wanted to comment about this show, and I'm going to watch all 10 episodes. And they have a sinister reason for bringing this out into the public. And I thought you might comment on the the first couple episodes and what you have heard, seen, the trailers, etc., and your thoughts about what they're doing and why they're making this so public to Americans now.
Okay, I've got some things to say about it. Of course, I haven't seen the show, but I have seen some trailers, and it's a TV show called The Young Pope, and it's on HBO on Sunday and Monday nights for 10 episodes beginning in January. It was written and directed by Paolo Sorrentino, who is an Oscar-winning Italian director. And this show, and certain things I'll say are things that I've read many reviews about it, so I've just kind of put together a little synopsis of it. And it says the show revels in the serene yet sinister inner workings of the Vatican. It stars Jude Law as Pope Pius XIII. Jude Law stated that after the show was filmed, it was sent to the Vatican. Now, Greg, this indicates to me that they were looking for the Vatican's approval on this project that, to me, may have been requested by the Vatican itself.
Well, I think, and I'll help you along because I have seen a couple of the episodes. I need to watch them again to be a little bit more, make more intelligent comments, but I can help you along here. They filmed this thing in the Vatican, so this had to be prepared and planned by them. They wouldn't have allowed it to occur unless they knew exactly what it was going to say. And they probably even funded a lot of it.
I believe that, yes.
Yeah, they're not going to get into the Vatican like this. These scenes are quite, I know they're there because I used to walk through those halls when I worked as a journalist. So they've got approval from the Vatican. But go ahead.
Well, now, Jude Law stated that they can't film in the Vatican, but I think that's a bunch of you-know-what. I don't really believe. I mean, yeah, they maybe can't, but that doesn't mean they didn't. They're just a bunch of liars.
I had to be there. I mean, and to build those, well, here's the deal.
They said they rebuilt the Sistine Chapel. Come on. I mean, and all those paintings and all that. I mean, who are they trying to kid? I think they did it in the Vatican myself.
I don't see how they couldn't. Well, I'm gonna get in touch with a couple people I know in Rome and see what really went down. Okay, so go ahead. We'll just go on what we know. Go ahead.
He says Jude Law said that the costumes and jewelry were handmade under the auspices of the Vatican experts. So the Vatican are going to give their experts to show this ornate costumery and jewelry, but they're not going to let you film in there. That's just not true. One would think that a show filmed on the property of the Vatican, as it was, would have possibly been commissioned and paid for by the Vatican, and I say that it was. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and my opinion is too. And if you talk about a movie made by the Vatican recently, Angels and Demons, I don't know if you've seen that, but you can watch it online. Angels and Demons is a total opposite. It was approved by the Vatican, shot there, and it's a complete distortion of the truth. And I know that for a fact because one of my sources and insiders in Rome actually saw Tom Hanks and Ron Howard meeting with cardinals. The funding was from a lot of it came from the Vatican. They had basically the storyline of Dan Brown, who was works with the Jesuits. Yeah. And this whole thing was staged. And I believe the young Pope is the same thing. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And what it does is what they're saying is they said that the first episode aired on Italian television a year ago, and it was a huge hit and received the highest rating ever for the first episode of a Sky Atlantic drama. Sky Atlantic is owned by Rupert Murdoch. Now, it says that the young Pope might masquerade as a high-budget soap opera, but it tells some uncomfortable truths about the hypocrisy at the top of the church. And also, Greg, we discussed this, is how it kind of comes across as a comedy in a certain way, but as Sorrentino said, a lot of comedy, there's a lot of truth.
Right, and they shift from dreams to non-dreams, and you get confused on the reality of this. But their message is clear. So tell us, tell us about the opening, or do you want me to? Because I've watched it.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
All right. Well, when you see the first episode, it opens with a sea of dead babies. That's what you see. all these dead babies and heads, and out of that pile comes a live baby crawling out. And as he gets out of the pile of dead babies, it shifts to the young pope. And tell us a story, tell us about him being adopted, things you know about it.
Well, it says that the Pope, the young Pope, his name is, it doesn't matter what his name is.
Lenny Gallardo.
Lenny
Gallardo,
yeah. They say that he was an orphan, and I guess he's got a lot of issues.
An American as well.
Yeah, he's an American Pope, that's right. And the first American Pope and the first really young Pope, he plays somebody that's about 47 years old.
Exactly.
And this show has been sold in 110 countries. 110 countries. That's over half the countries in the world. So this show, they're pushing it. They want you to see this for a reason. And it comes out like, let's see, what did I want to see here? Oh, the thing that it says is that, and this is by Paolo Sorrentino saying this. He says, the show's real twist. Well, actually, no, this is by Tad Friend, who wrote. Tad Friend is a writer for The New Yorker, and he wrote, this article just came out in The New Yorker, which is one of the Vatican's mouthpieces, and it's called The Spectacle of the Young Pope, and he made some comments on it, and he's the one who said that the show has been sold in 110 countries, and he also said that the show's real twist is that the Pope may not be a believer. Well, what's new? Of course we know he's not a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ or in the resurrection or the deity of Christ, because he thinks that he's God. And the Pope Pius XIII character was supposedly an archbishop from New York, and he is quoted as saying, I'm a contradiction. I'm God.
Exactly. And you know what?
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this, that they chose Pope Pius XIII. Now, we know Pope Pius XII is the Nazi Pope who basically mentored Hitler. So that was interesting. But one scene I got to talk about here that gives me the idea that what he's really doing, his actions, and I'm watching, first for their body movements, and then I'll go back and piece together some more of the messages. But he comes across as a trickster, very sinister, very tricky. His eyes are always, and it reminds me, I think he's playing Satan and God he's God in disguise, but he's actually Satan. Now, I may go back on that statement, but that's how he comes across to me. Now, if people don't know, the Pope always has a Jesuit confessor, and he has one in this the ending of the first episode. And he gets with this dawdling old Jesuit. They don't say he's a Jesuit, but that's how it is. And he wants to give his first confession. Now, the Jesuit, they sit down outside, and usually they go into a confessional, but he says, no, I want to be out here on the balcony. And so he begins his confession, and he says things like this. He goes, I do not believe in the redemption of Christ. I do not believe that Christ or God can redeem me. I do not even believe in God. And this poor little priest is like trembling, going, Holy Father, what are you saying? What are you saying? And the young Pope, Jude Law, looks over with these evil eyes, and he starts to crack a smile, and he says, oh, I'm only joking, Father. Now tell me that doesn't tell you who they're trying to depict this man as. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that he comes across as full of blasphemy. Speaking blasphemies, he's exceedingly arrogant, boastful, and proud. He's a real creep, and he's a real vehicle, a real person that they can use. Actually, they've said, I haven't seen this, but they said that there's actually a scene where you can see his naked behind. They're showing him, and they said there's other places where there's nakedness. Now, I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it is. There was one scene, that reminds me, there was one scene where you do see that. He's in the shower, and they show his naked body from behind. Yep.
So they're showing, I think what they're doing is, honestly, Greg, that they're coming out and they're just exposing the way they really are, and they want you to accept it. And they kind of get you laughing. They want you to laugh about certain things, the way they,
kind of, what if this was really true? It's really not, but what if it was? Let's have some fun with it, These poor priests are being accused of this, And really, that's not the way it is, but it is. They're using all those techniques. Okay.
And like how they showed it a year ago, they want to see how people are taking it, what they're saying about it. Now, see, there's a lot of memes. People are laughing about it. It's hilarious. It's funny. There's a lot of memes about it, and they're getting all this. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
Exactly. They're getting the reaction. That this is the most important thing. How are the masses in these 110 countries going to last?
Yeah.
Going to act, excuse me.
What they're going to do, I think, they're going to bring in this character that's the Antichrist. They're going to bring in the beast. There's going to be a one-world ruler. And according to the Bible, everybody's going to just love him. They're going to worship him. He's going to be anti-God. He's going to be anti-Christ.
Exactly. 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes. So you wanted to mention something about Rupert Murdoch.
I'll have to do this for another show. There's too much there. But yeah, he's a papal knight, and he's a Knight of Malta and a Knight of the Order of St. Gregory, and he is devoted to, he's devoted to the Pope, devoted to the Vatican, and that's why he is a knight. And
he's a media mogul from Australia that owns the Fox News and many newspapers.
So many.
Sky, he owns Sky in Europe now.
Sky Atlantic, yes, he does.
Yeah, so
this is where it's coming from. This is how they're deceiving people with the mouth of the media, like the Bible says.
Exactly.
Speaking great things and blasphemies. That's what it's all about here.
Yeah, and so to wrap it up here, we got maybe a minute and a half. Please go to freetonyalamo.com, and you can read about the latest raid in 2008 and a little bit about the petition, as well as go to the top of the page, and you can sign. Click on it, go to the petition page, and you can sign, leave comments, and help us out, and try to really get the truth out about this ministry. I hope you enjoyed the show. And Debra, of course, will be back with us. And you got about a minute, about 30 seconds, Debra. Go ahead.
Well, I guess anything else I want to see, I'm going to need more time. But thank you for letting me come on this show, Greg. It's been really animated here today, I have to say. And I'll talk to you again the next time.
Yeah, okay, that was Debra Ondrisek. Stay with me because I want to talk to you after the show. But let me just tell you this. Go to Arctic Beacon, that's ARCTICBEACON.com. You can get shows and even get many interviews I did with Tony before they put him in prison. And at times I replay them just to hear his voice again. And you're going to see that even years ago he was talking about things that are really coming true today regarding what's happening in the Vatican, as well as the control over our foreign and domestic policy. Again, thanks to Debra Ondrisek. We'll see you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, the rapture will be canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.